you guys are ready, I'm ready.
Let's
Here
go.
we go.
We're done meeting talking.
Yeah.
Sorry.
First of all, I'd like to start by thanking the people who put the clinic on for asking me to come over here. This is kind of interesting for me. It's humbling in a lot of ways because the high school coaches in the state of New Hampshire played a really important role in my life. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today. I wouldn't be able to work with the athletes I work with. And I wouldn't be the person I am without my coaches in high school. And so if you are a high school coach, the role that you guys play on these students' lives is indelible, and I think it's really important. So I want to thank you guys for doing what you guys do, and for the influence you guys have on student athletes. I've actually been fortunate enough to coach some of the student athletes that you guys have worked with, and I can see the impact that you guys have on them as well. So just wanted to start with that. I think that that's really important. And so everything that where I've ended up in my life working with as a professional coach, it's to be quite honest, it's sometimes a little overwhelming how I was able to pull that off. And it's humbling to be able to talk to other people who love the sport and are really passionate about the sport. And so that's kind of the way I would go about these things. It's not like this formal thing, like I know everything, because I certainly don't. I'm still learning every day, and I think that that's one of the most important things in this whole thing, is coming to a clinic, and I learn from you as much as you learn from me. It's that learning process. That's part of the way that I've been able to figure this out. So, we're talking about trying to develop range in middle distance and distance women, and I think that that's important for coaches in terms of, if you're going to have a cross-country team, you're going to have a track team, how do you kind of get athletes to perform in both and be successful at a range? It gives you versatility in the athlete, in your meet entries. It gives you flexibility in terms of what you're trying to do with these athletes too, in terms of having them be able to run either relays for you or run cross-country races. So a few examples that I've worked with, we can go through, and I guess this will be printed up and maybe emailed to everybody, something like that. So I'll make sure everybody gets it. I can't believe I'm using a laptop, because usually I'm using pencil and paper. This is like really out there for me. But, so bear with me with that. So some of the kids that I've had, and all these athletes came into UNH, and they were all right around 5 minutes when they got to me. And some were a little faster, some were a little slower. So we had a kid, Allison Laterno. She ended up running 2:08 in the 8. In the 15, she was a 4:20 kid. In the mile, 4:42. In the 3K, 9:34. And then she ran 16:39. She was all conference and cross. Another kid she was a New Hampshire high school kid, Ann Twombly. She ended up running 2:09. She ran 4:21. 4:38 in a mile, 9:49, 16:46, and was all conference and cross. Another kid, Keely McGuire, was a 2:13 kid. She ran 4:26, 4:45 in a mile, 9:29, 16:27, 34:50. She was a conference champ and two-time all-region and NCAA qualifier. She ended up being 24th in the Olympic trials in the marathon. Another athlete that I had, Rosa Donegan. She was like right around 3 minutes in a K. She ran 4:25 in the 15, 4:45 in a mile, 9:26 in the 3K. She steepled 9:49, 16:17, and 34:10. She was an All-American in cross. Another kid came as a sprinter, and she's run 2:07, Dana Gajewski. 2:07, she's a New Hampshire kid, 2:07, 4:48 in a K, 4:31 in 15, 4:55 in a mile. She's currently on the team, so she's not quite, we're still working on her. Another athlete, an in-state kid, Shannon Murdoch, she was 2:12. She's run 4:19 in 15, 9:16 in the 3K. She's a conference runner-up in all region and cross. And then finally, the one that everybody wants me to talk about, Ellie Perrier came to UNH as a 4:54 kid. She left as a 2:03 kid. She ran 4:07 in the 15, 4:26 in the mile, 8:43 in the 3K, 9:43 in the steeple, so that's, need to do better than a minute anyways. 3-time conference champ, 11-time All-American, and so the approach that I took with these athletes is, the first thing we start with is the life approach. So it all starts there, okay? So we gotta work on a healthy life approach. So it starts with the big three, sleep, hydration, and nutrition. We spend a lot of time talking about those three things and educating the athletes on what those components of those things are. And in the college atmosphere or the high school atmosphere, with young growing kids, they got a lot of other stuff going on, and trying to really narrow it down and focus on those three things. If you don't get those three things right, no matter what you're doing for workouts, it doesn't really matter. The next thing is trying to balance the demands of school, family, and social. And each kid has different demands of those things. And you gotta really focus on making sure that they have a balance with that. Because if a kid is like in a spin and things are crazy with social or with a family breaking down, and you can't control some of these things, but trying to manage those issues is really important. So you got to get to know these kids. It can't just be they show up for an hour and they run and then they go away. You got to try to figure it out, and you got to also try to not be intrusive as well. That leads right into the next thing is good decision making. Particularly in the college atmosphere, we're talking about decision making around alcohol, social decisions, sleep, those type of things. It's a little easier in high school, but it may not be. But certainly drugs and alcohol, and figuring that out is a reality with youth, and we gotta address it. You can't just ignore it because it's happening, and if you don't get in there and get a grasp on it, it'll take control of what's going on. Some kids, if you're lucky, are just, well, I don't drink. Well, that's great. That's. But in the college level, that's rarely the case, to be honest. And then the final part of the life approach is you got to make running important. Running has to be a priority in their life. I talk to these kids about the fact that you're going to have a lot of things that are important in your life. Your family, your school, your friends. Some of them have like really deep relationships with boyfriends and girlfriends. But running needs to be on that list. And it has to be really important in your life. It has to be in that top 5. It may not be number 1 every day. Some days it is, but it has to be in that top 5. And if it isn't, you got to really question how far you can go with it and how much success you can have. So you got to really spend a lot of time working on that. And that's really the hard part, to be honest. The training and the workouts I believe are the easy part. That leads us into some of the training though, and a couple things I look for in kids. First thing, and this sounds really simple, but I think it's really important, is you got to find fast kids. They need to be fast. So that really, that what I'm looking for to get these kids that are running into the 4:30s in a mile, they are high school kids that are running sub 60 in a 400. And what happens is in the state of New Hampshire, a lot of kids, sub 60, well, I can win the 400, in my league or my this, my that. And then all through New England, sub 60 kids running in New England. 60's a split. And you got to really sell kids. Last year at the U.S. Nationals, Ellie Purrier came home in 60 point, and she got dropped. The winner came home in 57. 60's a split, and 60's not a 400. And really find those kids. So I'm looking for kids that are, 62 at the slowest. And you can see where they're developed, but you got to find those fast kids, and you got to, and I'm very aggressive with finding the best athlete I can find. Multi-sport athletes, particularly youth sport, multi-sport athletes, are really great athletes. Basketball players, skiers, soccer players, get them away from lacrosse. Find those multi-sport kids. Kids that can jump, kids that have strength and body awareness, kids that are coordinated. Those are the kids that are gonna end up running fast for you, and kids that can run fast. One of the tests that they do in a country like Morocco, or where they test people out, is they actually will test for their milers their long jump. That's one of their tests. The kids who can jump and run fast for 400 are the kids they're looking for. And I think our sport sometimes has it backwards. We get like the awkward kid that can't make the soccer team, so we get the kid that isn't the athlete and are forced to work with that kid. But if you really want to get a high-level kid, you got to get the kid who is the athlete. You know, have an open mind to that kid that does play basketball in the winter. Let her play basketball and have her run spring and cross. And that I feel that basketball season is really going to help. So the next thing that I try to work on is you try to read as much as you can and learn as much as you can from all types of different sources. And then you have to, the thing that I've focused on is applying it to your level. So I can read a workout that some world-class person has done and try to plug my kids into that world-class workout, and that doesn't work for me. But I can find the basic fundamental philosophy of that workout and then utilize that philosophy. The other thing is trying to find inspiration in readings from unlikely sources, reading books on business and reading books on philosophy and those type of things, and drawing little nuggets of information from those books. So that's something that I've spent a lot of time doing. So the program that I have is progressive. What you want to try to do is it's over time. I basically have a thing that I really believe in. And sometimes it takes 4 or 5 years. And it's just a simple little graph. And so this I is improvement. No way, you guys can't see. And T is time. So you need to get way out here. So when you first start training, you have a quick improvement, and then it kind of levels out over time. So you need lots of time to get lots of improvement. And you got to be really, really patient. And lots of athletes will kind of go like this. And it's crucial to deal with these, to really psychologically keep the student engaged right there when that's happening. We lose a ton of people on that first drop. And then we lose even more on that second drop. And you gotta really stay engaged on them at that personal level, and that confidence piece and that belief piece is when that drop happens. But sometimes you need those drops because you need the time to get really good. And so you gotta really be willing to roll with the punches and take the drops as a coach. And I think if as a coach you get really afraid of the drops and they shake you up, that's gonna shake the kids up. And then that really kind of gets in the way. So you gotta roll the punches, roll with the drops, and give yourself the time to get really good. So that's a big thing that I work with. Obviously, then the next thing is you gotta train as a team and train together. I think that that's something that's obvious with a high school and with a college program. If you really can support each other, the group is stronger than the individual. And then the final thing that I kind of will mix in before I go into some of the training pieces is one thing that I spend a lot of time is slow kids have to run fast. So the complete opposite of what they want to do and what you have a tendency to have them do. Instead of just sending the slow kids out and just go for a nice easy run. Slow kids have to run fast, and fast kids have to run long. They all just want to sprint. Okay, I'm going to just do, hey coach, can I do 5 by 200? Yeah, you can do that, obviously, and you can blast through it. But you got to go long reps, long runs. So slow kids have to go fast, and fast kids have to go long. That's a big piece of it. And it really just goes against the tendency of what they want to do. And you really get them out of their comfort zone by challenging them that way. And so that's, again, they have to buy into it, because when you start telling the sprinter you're going to do like repeat Ks, they look at you like, what are you talking about? We're not doing that. And you got to say, well, anyway, so Joe would appreciate this. Antoine, who became an All-American, stood in front of my office and screamed at me, literally screamed at me, because I had entered her in a 3K, and I forced her to race a 3K. And she ran a 3K in high school. She was convinced that she was an 800-meter runner, and I was like, no, you have to run this 3K this meet. She almost quit the team over it. And it was like, I wouldn't budge on it. And again, she did not want to run long. She just had found some success in some of the shorter events. That's where she was comfortable, and she didn't want to do it. She ultimately did it, and it ended up helping her, I feel. So you got to be willing to kind of stand your ground on some of these things as well. Even if she is one of your best kids, I think it's more important to stand your ground with the best kids, and that kind of becomes pervasive throughout the team. Like, you got to do what you got to do. So some of the things that we do is, and at the end, as thing goes on, I really want to open it up to questions, because that will be much better than me stumbling through my computer. So we have, every day we warm up. We have like a specific warm up. So that becomes part of the routine and part of what we're doing and what we're locked into. So we have warm up A, B, and C. A is like your traditional go for a jog stretch. And some days we do that. We rarely do that, but some days we do that, and it plays a role. But you're sticking to your that you have a warm up. Warm up is as important for mindset as it is for everything else. Okay, we're at track, and we need to set aside all those other social things and all those other dynamics and start to focus on being in the moment and being present at track and running. Okay, so warm-up really helps with that as well. Warm-up B is a warm-up that we do before we do a workout and before we race. And you guys could set up your own warm-up, but what it does is, again, it prepares them to run faster, and it prepares them mentally that this is what I need to do to run fast. And as they do this over their time, over years, it really becomes, you can see as they work through the warm-up, you can see them start to get their game face on, their bodies are getting ready, and then this is, okay, game time. And then when you go to a meet, there isn't this frantic, hectic, they're confused, what do I do, what do I do, what do I do? They know what they do, and they know what they need to do. So as a coach, when you're all over the place at a meet, your kids can warm up because they know what the warm-up is. They've done it a couple times a week for the last couple of years, and they're locked in. Our warm-up B is We go for a K, we run for a K. Then we do a series of drills. Most of the drills are the ones that everybody's doing, and we could go into the purpose of those drills, but essentially you got your skips and your A's and all of that type of stuff. Then we do 4 by 80 meter stride. And they're progressive, each stride gets a little faster. Then we go for a 10-minute run. So we go out, 10 minutes again. The 10 minutes, the second 10 minutes, we're not jogging, it's 10 minutes steady, okay? Come back, change your shoes, get a drink, and we do a second set of strides. Usually these strides are a little shorter and a little faster. It takes, the whole thing is about 2.5 miles long. So instead of just going for a 2.5 mile slow jog, we've gone 2.5 miles with drills and fast running. So obviously you need to be in shape to just do the warm-up. Yesterday I had a group that the goal was, and we've been working with these kids since, some of these track kids since mid-September, the goal was to finish warm-up B with Shannon Murdoch. And they were like, oh my God, that was like a huge accomplishment for them to actually do the warm-up at her pace. That was their workout that day. But anyways, so you do the warm-up. Warm-up C is what we do on most days. And warm-up C is, again, it's a K run. And then we do a series of drills, but we also do a series of strengthening exercises within the drills. So we have lots of squats, and we have lunges, and it's all body weight, and it's movement based. We're working on strength, we're working on flexibility, and we're working on range of motion through the flexibility and strength. And so that's incorporated into the warm-up. So suddenly we're doing strength development multi-times a week, and they're thinking they're just warming up. So, and we're working on balance, we're doing RDLs, we're doing squats, we're doing lunges, we're doing all types of stuff. And we work through all of those things. So we have the warm-up, and that's really important. Another important piece of the program then to develop this range is strides. So when you come back, we have strides in warm-up B. We also have strides after you run. So we're trying to incorporate more days than not actual running, faster running. And I don't want the strides to be a big aerobic workout. We'll walk between our strides and have a little, break it up. Run them well, run them fast, run them at the pace, at a pace you plan on racing at. Instead of just kind of going through and you're doing everything slow, you're gonna be slow. So, and you can't do everything fast, but you can do some pieces fast. So we do strides a lot. On the flip